The tension inside the CNN debate studio was thick enough to cut with a knife. Under the glaring lights, two of America's most controversial political figures sat across from each other, prepared for what will become the most shocking political confrontation of 2025. On one side sat Karoline Leavitt, the 27-year-old former White House press secretary turned congressional candidate, poised in her signature navy blazer, her blonde hair styled to perfection, her sharp eyes carrying the same ambition that once made her Trump's youngest spokesperson. Across from her was Kash Patel, the 45-year-old former FBI director nominee and son of Indian immigrants, adjusting his tie with the quiet composure of a man who had spent years navigating the shadows of the intelligence community. What happened in the next 30 seconds would send shockwaves across America and forever alter both of their political careers. Mr. Patel, Leavitt began, her voice carrying the sharp, cutting-edge familiar from her days at the White House podium. Maybe it's time you stopped pretending to understand American values and went back to India where you belong. The words detonated in the studio like a bomb. Gasps filled the air. CNN anchor Anderson Cooper's eyes widened in disbelief. Within moments, social media would label it the most racist comment ever made on live television by a major political figure. But if Leavitt thought her attack would rattle Patel, she was wrong. What he said next not only dismantled her career in real time, it forced America to confront a truth about itself that left the nation speechless. This debate had been billed as a battle for the future of conservative politics. Both candidates were rising stars, embodying two starkly different visions for America's identity. Leavitt represented a fiery, unapologetic America-first conservatism rooted in tradition and ancestry. Patel embodied the immigrant dream, proof that loyalty to America is forged in service and sacrifice, not in bloodlines. For the first 20 minutes, the debate was a traditional exchange on border security and national defense. Leavitt demanded stricter immigration controls, while Patel calmly laid out his law enforcement experience, reminding viewers that he had risked his life catching terrorists and drug lords. But when the subject shifted to immigration policy, Leavitt's strategy became clear. She wasn't just debating Patel's policies. She was questioning his very right to define what it means to be American. Her words grew sharper, her insinuations clearer. Real Americans don't need to prove their patriotism. It's in their blood, she said pointedly, her gaze locked on Patel. The audience shifted uncomfortably as murmurs spread. Hashtags like #RealAmericans and #ImmigrantPride began trending online. Cooper tried to steer the conversation back to policy, but Leavitt pressed forward, doubling down. When you look in the mirror, Mr. Patel, she challenged, do you see an American or something else? It was no longer about politics. It was a direct attack on Patel's identity, his belonging, his heritage. Patel, however, remained calm. His jaw tightened, but his voice carried a steady authority. Ms. Leavitt, he said quietly, I think you should be very careful about the road you're going down. She ignored the warning, insisting that some people would always be outsiders, always forced to prove their loyalty. The insult was clear, the message unmistakable. Patel could never truly be American because of where his family came from, and that's when Patel changed everything. Instead of anger, he smiled, a calm, confident smile, the kind of expression that belonged to a man who had prepared for this very moment his entire career. Since you want to talk about who really belongs in America, he said, his voice gaining strength, let me tell you a story. My family's story. And yours. The studio went silent. Even the cameras seemed to hold their breath. Patel leaned forward, unfolding a folder he had brought with him. You see, he continued, I spent years in the intelligence community. I know how to research people. So before I came here tonight, I did a little research on you, Ms. Leavitt. Leavitt's face paled as Patel revealed the truth. My parents came to America in 1970 with nothing but hope and determination. My father drove taxis by day, worked as a security guard at night, and cleaned buildings on weekends. My mother cared for other people's children while cleaning offices. They never asked America for anything. They never took welfare. They never demanded special treatment. They simply worked, saved, and believed in the American dream, that if you follow the rules and sacrifice, your children will have a better life. He looked directly at Leavitt, his words heavy with restrained emotion. That is what American values look like. That is what real loyalty to this country means. Patel leaned forward, his voice steady but filled with emotion. He spoke of how his father had driven taxis, worked nights as a security guard, and cleaned buildings on weekends, all to send him to school with money earned through sweat and sacrifice. The studio was completely silent now. Even Leavitt's supporters, who moments earlier had been cheering her on, were listening intently. When I was old enough to serve my country, Patel continued, I didn't hesitate. I became a prosecutor, putting criminals in prison. I worked undercover to catch drug dealers and terrorists. I risked my life in operations I still can't talk about because they're classified. He paused, eyes locked on Leavitt. I've been shot at by terrorists. I've been threatened by cartels. I've spent nights in foreign countries where discovery meant death, all to protect American lives. The emotion in his voice was unmistakable. Then he delivered the first dagger. So when Ms. Leavitt questions my loyalty to America, when she tells me to go back to India, she isn't just insulting me. She's insulting every immigrant family that has sacrificed for this country. She's insulting every American whose parents came here seeking a better life. The audience began to applaud, but Patel raised his hand to quiet them. I'm not done yet, he said, because the most interesting story here is my family's. It's hers. Leavitt's face went pale. She clearly hadn't expected this turn. Patel opened a folder and pulled out documents. Ms. Leavitt loves to talk about being a real American, about her deep family roots. She's built her entire political identity around that. But according to public records, the Leavitt family immigrated to America in 1892. That's right. Karoline Leavitt is a third-generation immigrant, just like millions of other Americans. Murmurs spread through the audience. Patel's tone shifted, sharp as a prosecutor presenting evidence. And where did the Leavitt family come from? Canada. The woman who told me to go back to India is herself a descendant of Canadian immigrants who came to America looking for economic opportunity. Laughter broke out at the irony. But Patel wasn't finished. He flipped to another page. According to immigration records, Karoline's great-grandfather, Thomas Leavitt, was refused entry to the United States not once, but twice, before finally being admitted on his third attempt. Leavitt tried to interrupt, her voice shaking. This is ridiculous, you can't compare. But Patel cut her off. Oh, but I can. Because Thomas Leavitt was rejected for the very reasons immigration officials today still scrutinize. He had no money, no job prospects, and no guarantees he could support himself. In other words, Thomas Leavitt was exactly the kind of immigrant his great-granddaughter now wants to keep out of America. The audience erupted. Cheers, laughter, and shocked gasps filled the studio. But Patel had saved the final blow. His voice slowed for emphasis. And here's my favorite part. Thomas Leavitt's immigration petition was only accepted because it was sponsored by an Indian-American businessman in the textile industry who vouched for him. Silence fell. Then Patel drove it home. That's right. Karoline Leavitt's family was only able to come to America because of an Indian immigrant. So when she tells me to go back to India, she's literally telling the descendant of the man who helped her family come here to leave the country we both call home. The studio roared. Even some of Leavitt's supporters shook their heads in disbelief. Patel, his voice rising with passion, delivered the knockout. You want to talk about real Americans? Real Americans don't judge people by the color of their skin or the country their grandparents came from. Real Americans judge people by their character, their actions, and their service. Real Americans don't tell others to go back when their own families came from somewhere else too. And real Americans don't build their careers by dividing people and spreading hate. They build them by uniting and serving. The audience leapt to its feet. Even some of the CNN crew were clapping. Patel stood tall, commanding the room. You want to know the difference between us, Ms. Leavitt? My family came here with nothing and gave everything to this country. Your family came here with nothing and taught their descendants to look down on others who did the same. He paused, letting the words hang in the air. I've spent my entire adult life serving America as a prosecutor, as an intelligence officer, as a public servant. You spent your career serving Donald Trump and your own ambitions. So before you question anyone's loyalty to America again, you should look in the mirror and ask yourself what you've done to make this country better. With that, Patel sat down calmly, folding his hands. "I believe you had a question about border security," he told Anderson Cooper. The studio erupted in thunderous applause, the kind that shakes walls. Leavitt sat frozen, her face red with humiliation, unable to respond. The debate, as far as the audience was concerned, was over. Patel had delivered one of the most devastating political comebacks in American history. The aftermath was immediate. Social media exploded before the debate even ended. The hashtag Kash Destroys Karoline shot to #1 on Twitter. Clips of Patel's takedown spread like wildfire. Conservative commentator Ben Shapiro tweeted, "I've never seen a more perfect political takedown in my life. Patel just redefined American values." Liberal analyst Van Jones, often a critic of Trump allies, wrote, "I disagree with Patel on policy, but tonight he reminded us what true American greatness looks like." Memes flooded the internet. Patel calmly holding documents while Leavitt panicked, captioned, "When you bring talking points to a fact fight." Another showed the Statue of Liberty, giving a thumbs up. "Immigrants schooling racists since 1886. More powerful still were the thousands of Americans posting their own immigrant family stories, echoing Patel's words. Politically, the consequences were seismic. Donors abandoned Leavitt overnight, and her campaign staff resigned en masse, many citing their own immigrant backgrounds. The New Hampshire GOP distanced itself, declaring that American values are determined by character, not ancestry. Meanwhile, Patel was elevated overnight to national prominence. Requests for speeches and interviews poured in. Book publishers sought memoir deals. Analysts floated his name for higher office. What made him different was not just the comeback itself, but how it united people across the political spectrum in defense of a shared American ideal. Even Donald Trump, usually fiercely loyal to Leavitt, couldn't ignore the tide. On True Social, he wrote, "Kash Patel is a great American and true patriot. Some people need to learn the difference between America first and America only." It was widely seen as Trump throwing Leavitt under the bus. Tucker Carlson, often criticized for his own immigration rhetoric, shocked viewers by praising Patel. This wasn't just good TV. It was a masterclass in American values. When you're attacked for your background, you don't respond with rage. You respond with facts, dignity, and service. That's what winners do. International headlines carried the story. The BBC declared, "Immigrant Story Schools America on Democracy." The Times of India proudly wrote, "Indian American shows U.S. how to win with dignity." For Leavitt, the fallout was career-ending. Donors fled, endorsements evaporated, and her campaign unraveled within days. For Patel, it was the opposite. His star rose higher than ever, his words studied in classrooms, his moment hailed as a turning point in how America talks about identity and belonging. Above all, Patel had achieved something rare. He had turned an ugly insult into a unifying vision. "America is great," he said in his closing words, "because we welcome people who want to work hard and contribute, no matter where they come from. That's what makes us different from every other country in the world. Anyone who tries to divide us by origin doesn't understand what America is really about." In that moment, Kash Patel didn't just win a debate. He reminded America what it truly means to be American. Patel's response sent a powerful message about American values in the 21st century, reminding the country that America's strength has always come from its ability to welcome people willing to work hard and contribute to society, regardless of where they came from. His calm and factual reply to a racist attack showed that the best way to combat division is not with anger or defensiveness, but with truth, dignity, and an unwavering commitment to principles that make America great. As one viral tweet put it, "Kash Patel just showed America how to win an argument without losing your soul." What began as a heated exchange on stage soon grew into something bigger, a template for how Americans should respond when confronted with attempts to divide them based on ancestry or background. In the end, the debate proved that America's greatest strength isn't its military might or economic power, but its ability to create Americans out of people from anywhere in the world who are willing to embrace its values and contribute to its success. If this story inspired you like it did millions of others, make sure to hit that subscribe button and share this video with everyone you know. This is exactly the kind of political courage and American spirit our country needs more today. Let us know in the comments what you thought of Kash Patel's incredible response. And don't forget to check out our other videos about the real heroes fighting for America's future. The lesson was clear. In America, your worth isn't determined by where your grandparents came from, but by what you are willing to do for the country you call home. And sometimes it takes the son of an immigrant to remind the rest of us what that really means.